Buddy, my name is Reese, still Reese, and today is the conclusion of the Roote lectures. We're going to be synthesizing the Roote system as a whole. I want to do some kind of celebratory thing, I don't know what, but welcome to the end. As a reminder, this is the end of what? It's Roote. It's a group of folks who are finding a root level understanding of society in order to find the root for humanity going forward. If you're interested in this, check out the Roote Fellowship, which is a community of world-class systems thinkers looking to understand and build the future. Check us out at roote.co. And whoever you are, and you've made it this far, I hope you're doing well today. So, we're at our final piece here. We've chatted about abundance and generosity, and today we're not really going to chat about that. We're just going to conclude the whole system, not just abundance and generosity, but the whole thing. So to do that, we're going to chat a little bit about what I didn't discuss in the previous lectures. Also chat about you. We've been chatting a lot about the world, but how do you fit in? And then we'll do a final conclusion. So first, what did I not discuss? Well, there's a lot of things, right? This is only a very small part of the internet. And specifically, what did I not discuss about trying to understand the future and how we can understand the future? Well, first is demographic trends. This is one where on the bottom I did discuss this, where we're going to get a lot more folks in Africa, 3 billion people all in Africa in the next, 80 years, which is cool. What I didn't discuss is how the whole world is getting older. So this, because we're leveling out as a society. And so in 1960, we had a lot more young people, right? This is on the graph on the top here. While by 2060, especially as we get better and better at aging stuff, it's like, we're just going to have more and more old people in society. And so that's going to have a big impact. But again, I don't discuss it much. I don't talk a lot about a variety of different technologies. I mostly focus on the internet and this new networked human organism. But I don't chat about biotech much. I don't really understand. I'm not a biologist. And I don't talk that much about AI. I talk a little bit about AI safety, but I don't go too deeply on that. And these are two things that will have a big impact going forward, especially from an existential risk perspective. I don't talk about lots of other tech like VR and AR and stuff like that either. More time on crypto and things like that. The other thing that I don't talk about much is what I would call, these are kind of like macro understandings of society and history. So there's 4 of them here. The first one is this top left, this collapse of complex societies. And the idea here is that society gets, all societies collapsed. And ours may do so as well. Or maybe ours will be the first not to collapse. We'll see. And the idea is that you get more and more complexity, more and more interactions, more and more kind of hidden knowledge within these interactions. And then eventually that gets to be too much and there's too much friction there and you're not getting enough value. And so the whole thing collapses to a state that is less complex with like more smaller groups and whatever. And then another society gets built up and gets more complex. So it's like that cycle of more complexity and then less is the idea behind that book. The idea behind this next two, this bottom left and top right one, are these views of society over time and how you can kind of graph it. This bottom left one is this called this House-Strauss generational archetypes analysis, where you kind of think about different generations and that in theory, the way that your parents are does affect you and the way that you are affects the next people. And so you can kind of imagine this loop of society of like your great-great-grand, parents affected your great-great-great-grandparents, affected your grandparents, affected you, affected your parents, affected you. And then there's maybe a looping thing where then you get back to maybe you're similar to your great-grandparents or whatever. And that's the idea behind this theory where you have these different archetypes of generations. And there's lots of truth and not truth to this, but you can imagine that I know a lot of folks that think that this is a helpful, or not a lot of folks, some folks think this is a helpful way to view the current cultural trends. It's like, millennials are being the hero archetype right now. Or, focus on community and affluence and new technology or whatever. This top right one is from this guy, Peter Turchin, and it is Turchin. And Peter has this field of cloud dynamics. And the idea behind cloud dynamics is you kind of quantitatively understand society. And his key idea here in The Age of Discord, the book, is that elite, there are two lines here. One is popular well-being, which changes over time, and that compared to elite overproduction. And they're kind of the opposite of each other. So when you have elites that are overproducing or overcompeting, so for example, right now, you have a lot of people who are getting PhDs, and then they need to go to their postdoc, and then there's not that many jobs for them at the higher universities because that needs to be a scarce thing. And so it's like, oh boy, that's not great. And so there's this correlation between if there's lots of elite overproduction or overcompetition, then you have a more crisis-filled, not good society. And then eventually that thing falls as new systems of status and stuff get built, and that process kind of repeats. So that's another helpful way to understand reality. And we're right now in a place of elite overproduction where you have way too many, as an example, things like PhDs getting produced. And that's very connected to this book called The Dictator's Handbook. And the idea behind it is it looks at how different dictators and democracies understand society and how politicians use power. And the idea and why it's connected to the elite overproduction is that essentially, if you're a leader, there's technically your whole selectorate, all the people that could vote for you, but really the only people that matter are this like winning coalition of really important people, the elites. And when those elites, when you can give them lots of value, that's good. Like if you're a dictator that can then take, natural resources and then give the elites, your winning coalition a lot of money or whatever, they're happy and they'll still vote for you and do whatever, or vote for you / make sure you're in power with the military. But as the elites get less happy, then they start to see the system as they're not getting the value they want in return, and they're more incentivized to look for a different, crazier system. And that's when you'll get revolutions and crises and stuff. So this is to say that these are just 4 examples, but there are other views, especially historical kind of graph-based views of society that think about how society changes over time. And I don't discuss these too much. Another thing I don't discuss is like geopolitical things, especially like nation states, like the rise of China versus the US and how those two superpowers are going to interact. And like many superpowers over the last years, when one superpower rose and another superpower was there's a war. So like, are we going to get a war? I don't know. I hope not. And similarly, there's, just the changing of other nation states, like how will the EU change over time, and, Brexit, or something like in Africa and how Africa gets, 3 billion new people. How is that going to change society? I don't look very much at any of this stuff, and I don't know that much about it, but it's obviously important. And I think that the nation state is a centralized institution that will not be as important in the future. A thing that I don't chat about that I would love to have chatted more about is how government relates to technology. So this is something like civic tech or gov tech. And these are things that it's thinking about like the APIs between government and the people. So it's like right now, if the government wants to understand people, well, back in the day, they started to do these opinion surveys, which are a big thing, and they'd send people letters or call them or whatever and find out what they think. And so we can imagine this amazing new future where the crowd actively connects to government in these much more beautiful ways. Like there's one example is this pairwise comparison system where the government presents you, do you want this thing or that thing? And you vote on one of them. And then you keep doing that. And then they do that for a lot of people. And then you get this kind of ordered ranked list of like things that the people think we should do. And so there's lots and lots of interesting examples of cool new ways that government can interact with technology. And I do not chat about them very much either. I don't chat too much about this idea of how can we get better education and healthcare and housing, especially in the world, but this is specifically to developed countries. There's a thing called baumels cost disease, which looks at, there's this graph on the right that says, okay, everything costs this certain amount, in 1980, and over time, did stuff get more or less expensive? Well, stuff like toys got a lot less expensive, but something like college tuition got a lot more expensive. And so, why is that? And the rough reason is because technology allows us to get much more production out of, for a toy, we're much more efficient at making the toys than we were. We get better machines, etc. But for college tuitions, there's both some bad incentives there, and it's like it requires a lot of people, or something like medical care or whatever. It requires a lot of people to actually do the work, and so it's harder to just like automate it and to make it cost less and less. And because other things are costing less, well, the thing that this thing is just going to cost more. The medical care or whatever is going to cost more. And so I do think this is important, though, to think about how can we get much better education, healthcare, and housing in society and make all these things more abundant. But I don't chat about that very much. I also don't chat about the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. This is something from Bell Hooks, and there's an amazing phrase from her. And so I chat a little bit about the imperialism and our desire to exploit the frontiers. I chat a little bit about, the capitalism for sure and the history of that over time. But I don't chat that much about race, white supremacy. I don't chat that much about patriarchy. And those are especially worrying because I am a white dude. And I don't go too deep into these ideas of power or identity more generally. So I just want to highlight that as I don't go too deeply into this. And it is perhaps especially worrying because I am a white male ignoring power and identity, especially identity. I also don't chat that much about religion and spirituality, right? I kind of touch on this in a variety of ways with moralizing gods and how to create meaning in your life, but I don't go too deep down this rabbit hole. Okay, what does missing all that stuff, what does that feel like in your body? I'm kind of laughing right now. I feel relieved. It's like, that's a lot of stuff that I'm glad I don't have to go into. And there also needs to be a sense of focus. And there's other places on the internet to learn about those things. So I think it overall makes sense, but probably missed more things and will likely add other videos in the future. Okay, interactive time. What else did I miss? Like, what would you like to learn more about? Okay, the second piece is probably more crucial. The first is like, okay, we've been chatting about the world for many hours. What did we miss? It's like, look, you already chatted about the world for a long time. But the second one is like, where do you fit in? And that one we haven't been chatting about much at all. I like to think of this as, we've been understanding the world. How do we understand the world with our coherent pluralism stuff and the ontology of the world and the networkism and these new computer networks going, and then ethics and where should stuff go? And this has some aspect of humanity to it, of individuals and personhood, especially with epistemology and the coherent pluralism and then ethics and how to be a good person or whatever. But there's not enough of like how you fit into this. You can think of this future world, and then there's you, and how should you fit? And it's, I want to help with that for a quick second. So this is kind of a confusing graph, but I think it's actually really great. It's from Wait But Why, and the idea is that I've been chatting a lot about this changing world thing over here, where we have reality, and we have the world is changing. But I haven't chatted much about a changing you, about what are you like, and what do you want to do? And those two things together give you goals, where you have reality, you have your wants, who you are, and you get these goals, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do these things. You do some strategies, you adjust, you get some feedback, you do that a while, and then you come back down here and you say, wait a second, is this still the right goal? And let's say you check in, a month later, 3 months later, a year later, and you say, wait a second, reality has changed. Oh, wow, there's more internet in society, or there's COVID is gone, or whatever. So reality has changed. You need to kind of, educate yourself. And then you have changed, where you've adjusted. Maybe you want kids, or maybe you don't want kids, or maybe you lost your hearing or something. And so you have to reflect and adjust yourself. And so just repeating this process over time is what we want to do. And I've been focusing a lot on how the world is changing, but now let's chat about the changing you, how you're changing. So the first recommendation that I have with how you should interact with, how I recommend and encourage you to interact with society in the world, is first to recognize that, look, this stuff is scary. The world, going to 2100 and this new networked human organism and the existential risks and all that stuff, it's a lot. And my first recommendation with all this is remember, every moment passes. It's a process, right? So because it's a process, part of that says enjoy it, right? You feel like you're on a path, and then be present with yourself, be present with nature, be present with each other, because it's not like the goal will then make you satisfied. No, it's every single little moment where you can feel happy and be present. So this process is just going to unfold. Just time will continue to pass. Part of that too is this idea of the law of the adjacent possible, which you used to talk about for technology, where it's like we needed to have electricity before we could have computers. And similarly with where you're at. If you want to be an astronaut, but you've never studied science, well, maybe you need to study science. And so you just kind of start with where you are and then start to level up. So whatever you think about the world, just think about where you are now. You got to start with now and start with yourself now. And then iterate from there. And have this amazing iterative designer's mindset where you're like, okay, here I am now. Let's try this. What about that? Let's brainstorm a bunch of things. Let's try a couple and see if they work. Instead of just getting okay, here's where I am now. I need to make a big life decision and choose this next thing. It's like, no. Just try some stuff, Think critically about it, but have this iterative designer's mindset. Try it. Check back in 3 months. See where you're at. So this process mindset is great. The other one is just to start to deeply understand yourself. And so, this is this classic image of, understanding your childhood and your lenses and your socialization and how you were built, and then starting to put on new lenses. Really understanding yourself is a key part of adult development. And no better time to start like the present, or continue the starting that you've already done. Part of this is understanding your superpowers and shadows. Maybe for me, I have lots of hand gestures, but a shadow of that is I could hit somebody in the eye. So understanding your superpower shadow dynamics, and then starting to work on these self-reflection processes. Something like meditation, I've personally found very impactful. This, therapy and understanding these really formative moments in your life, I found that to be very impactful, and how I was built and what I was like in childhood. Or, for me, I do this, reflection every quarter or so of what are these important events in my life? There's a spreadsheet of them. And you don't have to use a spreadsheet. You can be more normal. But do it. You think about every 3 months, every year, really reflect. Did you achieve your goals? Where are you at? How have you changed? Think about yourself and reflect and engage in your developmental process. So now that you're great at self-development, then you can start to think about the professional side and really start to find a balance there. And the balance, remember that, work isn't everything. The top 5 regrets of the dying, there's this woman, Bronnie Ware, who did this, who was with hundreds or thousands of dying folks and asked them, what do you regret? And there were 5 big things they said. The first is that I wish I had had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. The second, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. The third, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. The fourth, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And the fifth, I wish I had let myself be happier. So these are amazing. I put these essentially on my wall or on my to-do list every day. And I kind of switch them to look like this, where, I bucket 2 of them where I say, look, be your true self and express your feelings. And I love the true self one where it's look, people have expectations of you, but check in with yourself, see what you actually want, and then follow your path. That's amazing. Follow your dreams. It's going to be scary. People are going to think you're weird. People think I'm super weird for doing what I'm doing right now. That's okay. Everybody's weird. And that's okay. Also express your feelings. This is, being a holistic person is not just thinking about stuff, and it's not harboring these internal feelings. It's no, check in with your body, check in with your feelings, see where you're at, and express them. Tell people you love them while they're still here. Tell yourself you love yourself, express sadness if you're sad, or anger or shame or any of those things. Then these two, so these are both like ways to check in with your inner self and express that to the world and feel okay with that. These next two are about people over work, essentially, which is like, look, cultivating friendships and connections with people, that's so powerful. And yes, you should be ambitious and work hard, but don't work too hard, Think about, relationships as a really the more important part of your life. And then finally, this final one is so crucial, and I only allowed myself to do this last year, is allow yourself to be happy, right? There's a switch that you can flip where you say, oh, I'm just going to be happy. I'm going to allow myself to be happy. And this allowing is crucial, where it's not like, oh, I need to be happy, find better movies to watch or get stronger and find a better hobby or whatever. It's like, no, you can check in with yourself. What brings you joy? And they're really small things. Like for me, a bath, bath is amazing, or the sun. And so every day I just get joy by just walking outside, doing a little meditation and just basking in the sun. And it just provides me so much happiness. So allow yourself to be happy, whatever that means for you, however dumb or funny or whatever it may be. I like to think of this as, back to this anti-fragile attractor piece and being present. That's an amazing way to be happy. And there's this great image from this article from More to That, where there's this box of daily experience and we're like doing things. And what we think is we need to like get more stuff and then put it, and then our daily experience will be better. So it's like, I'll travel to Japan and then I'll be happy, or I'll get a better car and then I'll be happy. But those things, you just get used to them over time. And so instead what you can do is just zoom out from the box itself, your daily experience, use like gratitude or a gratitude practice. For me, I do every day I just write down 3 things I'm grateful for: people or nature or myself or the internet or whatever. And then you have that daily box of experience, which is pretty much the same. Like I eat the same, I eat a banana every day, but sometimes in the morning I'm grateful for the banana, and you can be grateful for your daily experience and you're being present with that experience. And this idea of balance is very connected to making sure you're not all mental all the time. Or at least for me, I was too mental all the time. You might be too emotional all the time or something. But my 2018 New Year's resolution was to be more physical, emotional, spiritual, and less mental. And, this is because, you want to live a life of balance. You want to, be mental, work hard, do whatever. Or if you're in a relationship, be mental, but also engage with your emotional side. What about your spiritual side, the physical side? Make sure you're kind of balancing all these things. And similarly, something like the bento box is just balance and coherence in its purest form, where you're trying to meet all of your needs. In order to do that, you need to balance them. You can't just do a now me thing and gamble and smoke and eat amazing food and have sex all the time. Like that, your future me will not be happy with you. One final note here is that on the balance piece is that I've learned that even people who I think don't balance their life, these really professional people who seem to always be working or whatever, they actually, I don't need to read this whole thing, but important, smart people always surprisingly choose to prioritize their family over work time and time again. This example, there's this guy, Benedict Evans, who's just a venture capitalist or whatever, and he was working at A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz. I was like, oh, that's a big place. But he decided to quit and move back to London to be closer to his family. And I've seen this time and time again, these like really higher ups at Google, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to spend more time with my family. It is amazing to see people that you look up to and think that they work really hard and think that all their meaning must come from their work because they're so good at that. And in fact, even for them, even the people where the work is so good and they love it and all things, even for them, personal connections and family and friends matter more. So that's just a reminder to not do work too hard. And yet, talking about work, you should dream big, be ambitious, but also find your niche. You can't do everything. I like to think of the niche as 2 things. One is, a beacon on the internet where you're like, okay, for me, I'm into systems thinking and teaching and cryptocurrency and I don't know, ethics and stuff and music. And so I can put a beacon out on the internet and say, ooh, here's me tweeting about this thing I like or that thing I like. And then I'll find other people and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. You like metamodernism? Me too. And so that is one way to think about finding your niche and then finding other people that are similar to you. Another way that I like to think about is like as waves, where you got the world and the world has a lot of things that it needs. And you should just find the other people who are kind of making the same wave as you, because there's the world, so that's just crazy wavy place and everybody's going in different directions. And kind of what you want to just be like, okay, who's doing something kind of similar to me, and like, can we help each other? And those people that are over there doing something else, like, I'm not going to be a doctor, but like, you do you, and that's cool, but like, I'm going to be doing my wave stuff over here. Who wants to do it with me? This finding a niche is very connected to bucketing things or categorizing things into two buckets, the things you can't control and the things you can control. So this was for COVID, and you can do this anytime you're stressed as well, but also anytime when you're thinking about, oh, there's big stuff in society, this is crazy. So for example, things they can't control with COVID, it's like, are others going to follow the rules of social distancing, or are they going to wear a mask, or, you know, how much toilet paper is at the store? It's like, or how long it's going to last. Like, you don't have control over those things. So don't be too worried about them. You can let go of them. Versus all these things you can control, which is, you know, the stuff you should focus on. Your positive attitude, you know, following the recommendations, you know, finding the fun things to, you know, to do at home, you know, taking a bath, whatever. So doing this bucketing is helpful when you're in a stress time like COVID. And it's also helpful for work stuff where you say, I want to do so much of the world. It's like, whoa. What is your circle of influence and what is your circle of concern? Your influence is not that large. You can't change everything. So instead, take that down and be like, okay, what can you actually influence? Oh, it's this much smaller thing. Helping people in my current Roote cohort. Cool. Well, just focus on that and be concerned about that. As you start to try to find yourself and try to find other people like you, think about your professional life as this two-part system, which is finding what you love to do day to day, every day. What do you like to do? And then also, what is your long-term mission? So those are kind of two different things. One of them, I like to think of this arrow pointing in a direction, and then also the day-to-day process of that arrow going in that direction. So the direction is your mission. So for me, it might be trying to educate and empower as many systems thinkers as possible. Great. And then the day-to-day, there's a lot of different things that I could do for that, right? I could, if I really love coding, maybe I could do some coding stuff. If I really loved project managing, maybe I should do that. Or if I really loved teaching, maybe I do that. And so there's a question of what's your ING, what's your action that you're doing every day, and then what mission is that going towards? So trying to do some reflection on what is your mission, who else is looking to do it, and then what do you actually like to do day to day, and trying to find a thing that can do as much of both as possible. But even if you just get one of that two, that's pretty good, but finding both is perfect. I think my final advice here is to self-fulfilling prophecy yourself. So self-fulfilling prophecy is when you have, it's a loop, right? It's when you have a belief about the future and you take actions because of that belief, and the results of those actions confirm the original belief. So a belief about the future for me might be, I am strong. And then I'm taking these actions like working out and all these things because I think I'm strong. And then the results show me that I'm strong. And then so I'm strong. And it's this reinforcing cycle. And I found this to be incredibly powerful, where you just start making these I am statements, and you start to say, well, what kind of future do you want to be in? You say, I am a teacher. I am a systems thinker. I am a good friend. I am I'm a person who loves baths. Whatever it may be, you can tell yourself you are that thing before you're actually there. And then you'll just start to go in that direction, and you can start to vision yourself. It's like, how do you know what the future looks like? Well, you have to make visions of what it looks like. I am this, I am that, I am connected in these ways. The future looks like this. And then once you start to make that, once you start to envision that future, you can actually get there. This is kind of connected to the easiest way to predict the future is to build it. It's like, you got to envision the future in order to actually know where you're going. So yeah, use self-fulfilling prophecies for your own good here. Great. What do all these strategies for personal growth, what do they feel like in your body? Part of me is excited for you and for me on our journeys of personal growth. And part of me is a little bit embarrassed that I didn't spend as much time on this in this, this lecture series as perhaps I would have liked. But I also think I'm glad I put it in at the end here. Okay, interactive time. First, do all these exercises that I recommended, but what do you love to do? Towards what mission, Second, what do you currently do to understand yourself? What more could you do? What life trajectory and self-development trajectory are you on? And then third, just because I want to rep this one so much, do you have a gratitude practice? If not, I recommend it. You can just make it so that every morning, just write 3 things down or type 3 things down, 3 things you're grateful for, and then try to get a streak of it so you do it every day. Great. So we are at the conclusion of everything. We chatted about, these 5 pillars of Roote. That's what this lecture series was all about. The first one was thinking in systems. This, this way to holistically see how these interconnections and how they change over time. We really got to understand that. Then we looked at networkism, which is our current ontology. We switched from factoryism to networkism in this world of bits. And wow, we can send information around the world all for free in this permissionless way. It's created lots of information, and that's had lots of impacts on society. And the internet will continue to have lots of impacts on society. And then we looked at number 3, coherent pluralism, and how this is our epistemology, and how, given this so much information out there, too much, we as responsible individuals should take this both a pluralistic perspective and make sure we're viewing things from lots of angles, but also create coherence among them. And we also looked at how that idea of coherent pluralism can be used for empathy, and it's also a crucial part of a lot of movements like metamodernism and other things that are leaning into this kind of tension-based and dance-based mindset. And then we looked at number 4, bentoism. And this was, the ethics of the paradigm. So thinking about what is good, and where are we going? We know that we have these networks that are exploring, and we know that we see the world through coherent pluralism, but where do we want to go as a society? And we showed that, you can think in this simple little 2x2, both for yourself to meet all your needs, and also moving up the scales of society, and for companies, and also for the networked human organism as a whole, that we can think of, meeting these needs for now, combined with these needs for the future, and everybody else. And finally, we chat about generosity. And generosity is, a specific move that we can make where we've flipped a switch in society, where the human organism and specific individuals within it now have enough. We're at level 5. People who are level 5, they don't get happier when they get more money, and so they can let that money flow through them or ask for less money in the first place, and that generosity is going to be amazing, and we can make more and more generosity in the world by moving more and more people from level 1 up through level 5. So those are the 5 pillars of Roote. And the vision combines all of those, right? It's this future in which these networks, these bottom-up networks let me start from the first one rather. It's a future in which we use systems thinking to recognize these natural and technological systems that we're in, where nature 1.0, the earth, and nature 2.0, the networked human organism, and nature 3.0, the machines and the AIs, where they're all co-evolving with each other in a beautiful way, and where we develop these rules to make this amazing emergent behavior, and that we can think about those rules as, we have this new network of folks, this networkism that is, we're going to see continued. The vision is that there's going to be, the internet is just at the beginning of its impact on society, and that we're going to see more bottom-up network-based institutions, and that those are going to eventually start to take over, and have already started to take over some of these centralized institutions, and that trust is moving from centralized to decentralized, and that big shift is going to be really intense for society. It's going to be a big revolution, and we hope that's more of an evolution. And the humans, us as humans, we're going to start to be more coherently plural, and we are going to develop, we're going to have adult development, right? We're all going to be doing therapy and meditation and all this stuff, and we're going to be all able to do this perspective taking in this amazing, beautiful way. And we're all going to see the information through the internet, and we're going to be able to, we won't have fake news or post-truth anymore. And if people see it, they'll be able to work through it. And we'll be able to empathize with all the other folks in the world and care about them as well. And we'll be able to live in paradox and lean into paradox and be present with paradox in a more beautiful way, in a more comfortable way. And we're going to have, our ethics is going to update. We're going to move away from this now me focus towards a more holistic awareness of society and our own needs and the needs of others. And we're going to have a society where we don't need to worry about, where we're still worrying about, but we have a much better handle on climate change and other existential risks for humanity. Instead of a 1 in 6 chance of us self-terminating by the end of the century, we will have a 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 chance, where even though we're getting more and more powerful, we're getting more and more wise and more trusted, and where everybody's needs are more met. And also, the way we get there is by moving everybody to level 5, where everybody is in a state of having their needs met and being able to be generous with each other. And where money itself, it used to be a scarce thing, but money is just a means to an end. It's just a means to an end. And that end is our needs. And now, when you have enough, you can meet all of your needs. And you can start to give back to help each other and the earth thrive. And so looking back, in 2100 and 2200, we'll see this as a transitionary time. But we'll call our new age the wisdom age, or the bountiful age, or the age of trust. And we'll start to see ourselves as one earth and one networked human organism that's always constantly in balance between earth and humanity and computers. And that's possible. It's actually possible to get there, if we work really hard at it. And that's where you come in. There's that vision, but then there's you and how you relate. And we chatted about that earlier today in this lecture, where you can understand yourself deeply. And that's both part of the own work you need to do in order to be a coherently plural, bentoist, beautiful person. And it's the work you need to do in order to know how you can help, how you can create as much value for this emerging thing as possible. And as you create that value, to also, please, start with yourself and start with the relationships. And this whole thing is just, we're a blip in the massive space-time of a huge universe with so much time in it, billions and trillions of years. And yes, we're important, but the really thing is to be present with the relationships and the people around you. What does that feel like in your body? Yeah, my body's feeling good. I feel a sense of calm. Yeah. Great interactive time. The final interactive time. Where are you going to go from here? What actions are you going to take this week or next week or this month? Do you have any goals in a year? And also, the second action here is just a reminder. Put a reminder in your calendar to resync on this Roote stuff in 6 months or 3 months or a year. Just to check in and say, hey, where am I at now? Thank you. Seriously, thank you for watching. If you've even just watched this video, that's amazing. If you've watched all the videos, that's super amazing. If you're part of a current fellowship, I'm proud of you and I am grateful for you, and I love you, and that feels awkward for me to say, but I love it all, and I am grateful to be able to teach this. I'm grateful for my childhood and my upbringing and who I am, and for working through those fears about living my best life and being who I am. And I'm grateful for all the teachers and people that came before me. And this is really just one big synthesis of ideas. And so I'm grateful for all of that. And I'm grateful for your time and engaging with it. And I hope it was helpful. And I hope it continues to be helpful. And I hope you're doing well today. And I hope we all can continue to do well for humanity as we go forward. Thank you. If you're in the Roote Fellowship, seriously, thank you so much for being here and for your time and your energy and your effort. And if you're not yet, it's good. It's a good crew. Check it out. We're building those Roote pillars. And so join us at roote.co. Thank you and goodbye.